Discipline is probably one of the most misunderstood things on the internet. The moment people hear the word, they picture someone waking up at 4 a.m., taking ice baths, running marathons before sunrise, and screaming motivational quotes in the mirror like they're training for war. But real discipline usually looks a lot less dramatic than that. Most of the time, discipline is just doing something boring when you don't feel like doing it. That's it. The problem is that people think motivation creates discipline, when it's usually the opposite. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. Some days you feel unstoppable. Other days, even answering one email feels exhausting. If your entire life depends on motivation, your progress becomes random. Discipline is different because it works even when your mood doesn't. And honestly, modern life makes discipline harder than it's ever been before. Everything around you is designed to remove discomfort instantly. Hungry? Order food in 5 minutes. Bored? Scroll endlessly. Feeling lonely? Open social media. Feeling stressed? Distract yourself for hours without even realizing it. Your brain starts getting trained to avoid effort and chase stimulation. That's why sitting down to study for an hour can feel physically painful, while watching TikTok for 2 hours feels effortless. One activity gives your brain constant rewards. The other requires delayed gratification. Your brain naturally chooses the easier option unless you consciously train it not to. And that's the key most people miss. Discipline is not something you magically have. It's something you train. Think about it like going to the gym. Nobody walks into a gym for the first time bench pressing 300 pounds. You start small. You struggle with weights that stronger people consider easy, but over time, your muscles adapt because resistance forces growth. Discipline works the exact same way. Every time you do something you don't feel like doing, you train that part of yourself a little more. Every small decision matters more than people realize. Getting out of bed when your alarm goes off. Cleaning your room when you'd rather ignore it. Finishing work before gaming. Studying when nobody is forcing you to. Those moments look insignificant, but they slowly build your identity. And identity matters because people naturally act in alignment with who they believe they are. If someone sees themselves as lazy, every difficult task feels unnatural. But if someone starts seeing themselves as disciplined, even small actions begin reinforcing that belief. Eventually, discipline stops feeling forced and starts feeling normal. That's why small habits are powerful. People always want to start with huge transformations. They create impossible schedules, plan 10-hour study sessions, promise themselves they'll work out every single day, quit every bad habit instantly, completely reinvent their life overnight. And it usually collapses within a week. Not because they're weak, but because they skipped levels. If you can't consistently make your bed, you probably won't suddenly become the person studying 8 hours a day. Real growth is gradual. Small wins create momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates consistency. The people who seem extremely disciplined usually didn't start that way. They just repeated small actions long enough that those actions became automatic. Another thing nobody talks about is how much your environment affects discipline. If your phone is next to you while you work, your brain is constantly aware that easier stimulation exists. If junk food fills your kitchen, eating healthy becomes harder. If your entire routine revolves around distraction, focus starts feeling unnatural. A lot of discipline is actually removing friction. People think disciplined people have stronger willpower than everyone else. Sometimes they do, but often they've simply designed their environment better. They make good decisions easier and bad decisions harder. That's why routines matter so much. When you rely entirely on emotions, your productivity becomes unpredictable. But routines reduce decision-making. You don't wake up asking yourself if you feel like working out. You just do it because it's part of your day. The same way brushing your teeth doesn't require motivation anymore. And honestly, one of the biggest mindset shifts is realizing that discipline is a form of self-respect. Because when you constantly break promises to yourself, your confidence quietly disappears. You stop trusting yourself. You say you'll wake up early, then don't. You say you'll start tomorrow, then delay it again. Eventually, your brain stops believing your own words. But every time you follow through on something difficult, even something small, you rebuild that trust. You prove to yourself that your actions mean something. And the rewards of discipline are rarely immediate, which is why most people quit too early. You don't go to the gym for a week and suddenly transform your body. You don't study hard for 2 days and instantly become successful. The results are delayed. That delay frustrates people. But almost everything valuable in life works that way. Health, skills, confidence, money, relationships, all of them are built slowly through repeated actions that seem boring in the moment. That's why disciplined people often look normal day to day. Nothing dramatic is happening. They're just consistently doing things most people only do occasionally. And over years, that gap becomes massive. One of the best things you can do is stop obsessing over intensity and start focusing on consistency instead. A person who studies 1 hour every day for a year will outperform someone who studies 12 hours once every 2 weeks. A person who works out consistently 3 times a week will get further than someone who trains obsessively for 5 days, then disappears for a month. Consistency looks unimpressive in the short term, but unstoppable in the long term. And maybe the hardest part about discipline is accepting that it never fully becomes easy. Even disciplined people still have days where they don't feel like doing the work. The difference is they stop negotiating with themselves every single time. They understand that feelings change constantly, but actions shape your future. At some point, you realize discipline isn't about becoming a productivity machine or turning into some emotionless robot. It's about building a life where you can trust yourself, a life where your future isn't controlled entirely by temporary moods. Because motivation might help you start, but discipline is what carries you when motivation disappears. And eventually, the things that once felt impossible become part of who you are.